All right, hello, and welcome back to Go Big Orange Friday, where the entire trio is back and ready to go. Ethan Stone proudly wearing a Chicago Bears hat for reasons unknown. It's been a rough 24 hours for Ethan Stone, the Carnes Beavers, the Chicago Bears. If you're Ethan, I need you to rescind your Tennessee Volunteer fandom for a weekend. Like the combination of your fandom plus Peyton Manning being in the building this weekend is a little too much for me to handle. So we cannot have both. That's just too much bad juju right now. So unfortunately, yeah.
I was going to say it might be enough for a blowout. So I think I need to just leave the country, maybe flee for a little bit, go into the woods.
Yeah.
We'll just let you guys watch the game tomorrow. We'll see how it pans out.
There you go. What was your favorite touchdown of the 56 points scored by Oak Ridge last night on Rivalry?
I only watched a little bit of it. I know Deshaun Bishop had a fantastic second half, but he didn't have a great first half. So it's nice to see growth. That's what we're looking for.
I've heard they play 4 quarters in football, and it's more than a half. Also here, Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. Ryan, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing well. Not, feels a little cheap of you to be taking shots at lowly Carnes here, but I guess Carnes did beat Oak Ridge last year, so it was a little bit of a revenge match.
Well, hold on. Hold that thought. Spoopy season down there in Powell, Tennessee, because Ethan heard a sound and just turned around. I don't know what that was. Ethan, is your house haunted too? What's going on?
My cat he has this thing against the coffee, like the Keurig, and like he sees the little cap on top of where the water's kept, and he decides you can't be up there, you have to be in the water. So that's what he's doing currently.
There you go. What's your cat's name?
You can see him in the background.
Oh, I can. No, he's moving. He's trying to find a way in. See, everything is about the "let me in" gif. Today's podcast. He wants to get in there.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And Ryan, no cheap shots. It was just Carnes beat the hell out of Oak Ridge last year, and I was at the game, and Ethan's just tucked away in his student section with his family, listening to all the different tunes that the student section plays for whatever reason. Copyright be damned. They're playing everything. Every 30 seconds is another Fast Five soundtrack song, and it was a lot for the it was hey. I had to return the favor. What if that's just the bit for this series? Is one blows out the other year over year? You just never know which way it's going to go.
The exact opposite of Tennessee, Alabama, which is streaky.
Yes,
this is the exact opposite. They just every year they take one.
Well, did you hear about this? Did you see this? Tennessee playing Alabama this weekend. Which again, Ryan, what is this color you're wearing today? Is that Alabama red? What are we doing? Is that crimson?
Yeah, I can't say I really thought about it. It's a nice Pine Cove shirt. It's a summer camp in Texas, and my brother worked out for a couple summers.
Okay.
I put on gray shorts. I didn't really either, but I think this through. I guess it does look pretty. I guess it does look pretty crimson. So yeah, but it's not Alabama. But I can't really defend the choice of color here. I have no reason. I mean, I have a lot of other T-shirts I could have worn that are not crimson. I think this is the only crimson color T-shirt I have actually, but just went right over my head when I chose the T-shirt this morning.
Man, well, you can't wear it on the. Just make sure you don't wear that in the booth on Saturday. Just make sure you're not
working press box.
Yeah. Well, there is a football game happening this weekend in Knoxville, Tennessee at 3:00 or 3:30 rather, and celebrity guest picker is going to be Peyton Manning, not Dolly Parton. And Dolly's not doing it. I thought all week like. Dolly is a non-boat rocker. She's going, if you put her on there, she's going to be like, I mean, Dolly loves Alabama and Alabama fans who come into Dollywood each and every day. There's no way you're going to get her to go full Tennessee. There's no way. She's one of the few Americans who has a full 100% approval rating across the country. She is not going anywhere near anything where she has to pick sides. No way.
You're right. You're right. And I actually have some inside sources on this because I know someone whose dad is in Dolly's band, and they did approach her ahead of the Florida game. And yeah, she basically just didn't. To your point, I don't know if that was the reasoning or not, but she didn't want to do it. So I knew it wasn't. They weren't going to have her this weekend, and probably all the more contentious, as you're right. The the Crimson Tide fans, they love them some Dollywood. So I think you're on the money with that.
I mean, I love Dollywood. I'm very pro Dollywood, but everyone loves Dollywood. So they're just, and I think I need to get in there before the Halloween because they do some cool stuff for Halloween too.
It's really. I just went about a week ago. It's
really, did you? Was it fun?
Lights and stuff like that. It's very cool.
Okay.
You have to stay till at least like 7 o'clock though. Otherwise, it's. I mean, they look weird because they obviously have the things out like in broad daylight, and it just. I mean, obviously.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going at night. What am I doing? Leaving when the sun goes down for the Halloween show. Yeah, that's the
see the drone show. See the whole thing. It's awesome. It's very cool.
There you go. Don't do a lot of the roller coasters though. I'm not a big roller coaster guy, and there are some terrifying roller coasters at Dollywood, like terrifying ones around the Sun Mountain. Oof,
Lightning Rod is so fantastic. It's like
so you're a roller coaster guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh no, can't do it. Can't do it. I did the log one where you go in the water. You're like you go over real quick. It's over in like 7 seconds, and I'm like, I'm a warrior. I did it. Look at this. Look at this. I did the whole gladiator thing. Bring it on. And then you see the next one. You're like, I'm not doing that. I'm not cut out for this. Let me go check out the bald eagle exhibit over there. Let's go see how they're doing. Well, there you go. There is a game on Saturday. Peyton Manning, maybe he can do. There's an agreement where if he does guest picking, he doesn't go into the game. Like he's just there for the outside, and then he's just.
That's not happening.
He's in the building.
I mean, he was gonna be at the game. Everybody was mad at it. Like they're honoring the 1997 SEC championship team. He was going to be at the game. And that was just the reality of the situation. That had been known since like August. So I don't know where all this sudden surprise about it is coming from.
I hope they bring it up on game day. I wonder if they'll do that because Pat McAfee would be the perfect person to bring it up to him to be like, why do you hate our university so much? Why are you here? Like the biggest game in 20 years and you're here knowing that the Peyton Manning curse is alive and well. Like I want to have a dialogue about this on the program. Like I want him to also be like, I was actually at this particular game and no one knew about it and they won. Like, I don't know. Do we know for certain that he has not been at a win in a certain amount of time? Do we know?
He was.
I don't have the numbers on it.
I mean, I at least that's what Twitter's saying.
He was at the LSU game?
Twitter's saying he was at the LSU game. Now, take that for what it's worth. But that's what I've seen from multiple people anyway. And that he just didn't tell anybody.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that could be cool. Maybe that's the thing. The biggest question for you going into the Bama matchup is what, Ethan?
I mean, the cheap answer is if Bryce Young plays, so I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with can the defensive line contain whoever is playing? Because obviously Jalen Milroe is the more mobile of the two, but Bryce Young, I feel like torched Tennessee on the ground last season as well, even though he wasn't necessarily thought of as a running quarterback. He's dual threat. I don't understand where that came from, that people don't think that he can run and do some damage on with his legs, but if the defensive line isn't getting to Bryce Young, especially, he's gonna torch Tennessee's secondary. He just is. I mean, I'm not sure the latest on Jalen McCollum. My bet is that he's not playing. Obviously, Warren Burrell is out from 2 weeks ago, so we're missing 2 starters from the Florida game. And I mean, you're asking Tamarian McDonald and Kamal Haddon to do way too much, in my opinion. Wesley Walker's probably going to be playing a pretty extended amount of time against Alabama, and while he's played semi-well this season in the snaps that he's gotten, I mean, he hasn't faced a quarterback like Bryce Young. None of them have. None of them have faced a decent quarterback except for Keaton Slovis. And let's be honest, he kind of cooked Tennessee in the first half of that Pitt game. So if he doesn't go out, it's a different story. Nick Patty, obviously Tennessee was able to get to him and kind of make him look like Nick Patty. But if you've got a decent quarterback back there, I'm just not sure what the secondary is going to be able to do if you're just leaving him 3 seconds, 4 seconds to throw the ball. So defensive line has to create some pressure, has to be able to get to him, mess him up a little bit, and maybe get him off the field every once in a while.
I think Wesley Walker starts. I don't think it's McDonald at that spot, right? Like it's going to be Wesley Walker and Trey Flowers. And also, Heupel hasn't revealed if Jalen's practiced at all this week. Like, I don't know. That's just strange.
I would just bet that he's not playing. I don't think Heupel has revealed anything, but I don't know. You never know. That's just speculation, pure and simple. But I would guess that he's not playing.
I don't know. If you want to prove that Tennessee is back, moving on from the law and letting this stuff play out in court and play through these issues, that's how you know Tennessee football is back. Football over legalities. That's how you know an SEC program is awakened.
Yeah, just go after it.
Yeah, it just means more down here.
See what happens, Heupel.
I don't know, man. I'm not convinced that he doesn't play. Like, it might be a first half thing. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like it would have been more direct, and they would have been like, he's obviously out because he's out until this plays out, and it's settled and whatever. The fact that they haven't said that, I don't know. Ryan, what do you think? What does your gut tell you? Does he play?
I don't think he plays. I mean, they've
Okay.
known Cedric Tillman's not playing for 3 weeks, and they haven't said anything about it. So
True.
And I don't think it's nearly as big as a deal as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Jalen McCullough he is a starter. He's the captain, one of the captains on the defense, but he hasn't played at a very high level this year or any in the past. So Danico Slaughter would be a guy I'd be interested to see how much he plays, and then Wesley Walker is the other interesting one too. If he obviously him and McDonald kind of split those star snaps for most of the season. Walker played a lot of safety at Georgia Tech, so I'll be curious to see how much run he gets at safety on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you where it's just the matchup. You mentioned Bryce Young. Like, even if Bryce plays, where we're still not certain if he plays. Like, I think it seems like it's today, as of this recording, it's more in doubt that he plays than previously. And I mean, when you're hearing stuff, I think Josh Pay was like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ty Simpson, our old friend, in this game, Jalen Miller in this game. I don't think he's going to be able, like, even if he plays, the one thing we know for certain based on the AC joint issue in his right shoulder is, like, he's not going to be right. Like, he's not going to be 100%. So if he's playing with a lot of pain, and they're going to want to run the football a bunch. And that's what they've done. They've been the best non-service academy rushing team in the country. That's the one thing Tennessee's really good at on defense is stopping the run, and LSU couldn't run on them, and they had been able to run to that point. Florida is one of the best rushing teams in the country. They didn't really run on them. It was just Anthony Richardson through the air. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is a good matchup for Alabama. I think in previous years, like, this is not John Mechie and Jamison Williams and company causing all kinds of problems for this Tennessee secondary. Like, I don't think this is a good matchup. Bryce or no Bryce, I think this is going to be a much more arduous way to win for Alabama than it is for Tennessee. Like, I understand why you can't favor Tennessee here, but I think Tennessee has to have a turnover game from hell to lose this football game, where Hendon Hooker has to finally mess up and through the air and finally cause, like, Alabama has had 2 picks to this point in the season. 2. Like, if Hendon Hooker does not fumble like he did last week, and Tennessee doesn't jump on those fumbles, and that those go Alabama's way, and then maybe Hendon Hooker has a interception or 2 through the air, then yeah, I'm pretty nervous. But if Hooker has a clean game, I don't see how Tennessee loses this game. I don't see the path to a Tennessee loss. Ryan, I know you're just like, this is a scorching take,
but I just see a path to a Tennessee loss.
I don't.
I mean, I don't. I mean, I do think you're on the money. To me, that's one of my big keys in the game.
I'm saying not. I don't see a path if they go perfect in the Hendon Hooker interceptions fumble path. Like, if Alabama does not cause any short fields for their offense to just score some easy points on Tennessee, I don't see the path, because you're just not going to score enough.
To me, I think if Bryce Young plays, now I think he's going to be limited in what he does running the ball. And if Bryce Young doesn't play, I agree with your assessment. But if I'm going off Bryce Young playing, Alabama's going to be able to move the ball through the air. I mean, Tennessee, even LSU last week could move the ball through the air. Tennessee's defense just got off the field on 4th down. And LSU shot themselves in the foot a few times with some bad play calls, and then obviously some drops on 3rd down as well. But I do think you're right. To me, one of my biggest keys in the game is who can run the ball. It's the 2 best run defenses in the SEC, and who becomes one-dimensional on offense, I think, is a huge key. And especially, I think, on the other side of it for Tennessee against Alabama, you're right, because I think if Bryce Young plays and Alabama is able to run the ball effectively, all of a sudden getting stops is going to be really hard if Alabama has that balance, just because you're right, Alabama doesn't have the receivers that they've had the last probably 5 years on this team. They're not nearly as explosive, but Florida doesn't have any receivers, and Anthony Richardson's a heck of a lot worse than Bryce Young, and they were chunk play after chunk play against Tennessee. I do think you'll see Tennessee be really aggressive on defense, which they weren't in that Florida game. I would think they would want to hit Bryce Young or Jalen Miller or Ty Simpson, whoever ends up playing quarterback, as much as possible. But I think you're right on game, both sides being really, really huge. And if Tennessee can't run the ball and then they're in a lot of third and longs, I think that's going to make life really difficult for Hendon Hooker. And I mean, you go look at the Pitt game, really the one game, I wouldn't even go as far as to say Tennessee's offense struggled, but Tennessee's offense wasn't as crisp, and that's why. I mean, they got into a lot of third and longs, and Pitt has a really good pass rush and made things difficult on them. So I guess I see your point. I certainly am not going as far as saying, without turnovers, I don't see a path to Alabama winning.
I don't see it. Don't see it because Alabama, it's not going to go over. Like, if Tennessee does not lose those fumbles and Hooker throws another interception-free game, I think Alabama still will have at least a turnover or two. And I don't see it. If Hooker is the best player on the field on Saturday, I don't see how Tennessee loses this game. Like, if he is the better player and healthier player, I am curious to see how many QB draws they designed for this one, because he took some shots last week, and Bama is going. I don't know. I am very curious to see how often they put him in situations where it's the quick drop back and just straight up the middle and finding a first down, 3rd and 6. Like, that works really well, but he took some shots last week, and he's taking some shots. I mean, didn't he lose like 4 teeth in the Alabama game last year? Wasn't that like from a hit? I think
a couple teeth. I don't remember the number, but that came out, I think, on Tennessee's media day this year, where he just casually mentioned that he lost a couple teeth in the Alabama game.
Yeah, he's gonna take some shots, man. Like Turner and Will Anderson are still there, but I don't know. This is so weird. I'm just not as fearful of this Alabama team as I feel like. I don't know. Maybe I'm silly, but I feel like the Georgia game is far more concerning than the Alabama game, and it's not just because it's on the road. I don't know. I think there's something off with this Alabama team, and Texas should have blown them out if Quinn Ewers doesn't exit that game.
You just can't say these things. They should have blown him out. They played 10 minutes when he was in the game.
And it was a beautiful 10 minutes. And they just blew out Oklahoma 49-0. Texas. I mean, Texas is a really, really good football team when they're healthy. And Quinn is a superstar in waiting at quarterback. He's legit. I mean, they struggle with A&M. They're struggling with everybody right now. They're just in a dogfight. And I don't think the way those other schools are playing, like, Tennessee will let you off the hook in that way. Like, you're going to have to score 40 plus to beat Tennessee this weekend, I think. Number one passing offense in the country. Like, it's just math is on Tennessee's side right now.
I think it's fair. I think especially what you're saying with Alabama. I agree with Ryan. I mean, you saying Tennessee has an easy path to victory, essentially. I'm not sure about that. But Alabama is definitely down. I mean, they're not the Alabama of last year, of years past. And to be honest with you, what you were saying earlier, Georgia isn't either. I mean, I'd say, I mean, between them, Ohio State, and Alabama, I don't think any of them are the level that we saw Georgia's team last season or Alabama's, last season. I think all of them are beatable per se, but it's like you said, you have to have a perfect game because Alabama still has a lot of dudes and they still have a lot of depth and they still have Bryce Young, a Heisman winning quarterback in the backfield. It's just a matter of if he plays or not. And I mean, Alabama's definitely more beatable than they have been in the past, and Tennessee is at its best it's been since the 2000s. So, I mean, you can definitely see how a perfect storm would be coming here, but Tennessee still has to play a perfect game.
I don't even know if they have to play a perfect game, especially if Bryce Young is just not 100%.
It's just such a step up in competition. I mean,
they're 44th in yards per attempt through the air to this point. Tennessee's number one in the conference,
but they're not Alabama. They just aren't. Even with Alabama being on a down year, they're not. None of the three of those are Alabama. And I think that's a little bit – I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be terrified and they're going to play awful or anything like that. But I do think it's going to be a touch of a wake-up call, just a little bit.
I do think it's hard to get a feel for this Alabama team because they've played 3 good teams. And to Chase's point, Quinn Ewers did not play in the majority of that game. And then the other 2 games, Bryce Young didn't play for over 6 of the 8 quarters. So it's just kind of hard to get a feel for this Alabama team at this point in the season. And I guess one thing I would say that you feel confident Tennessee's going to get a 1 or 2 turnovers. If Bryce Young plays, I don't have that confidence. I mean, Tennessee doesn't have a whole lot of ball hawking defensive backs back there to really make you feel confident they're going to get one. And then I think it turns into fumbles and on both sides.
5 picks though this year for Alabama. 5 picks.
Yeah, three of them from Bryce. And Jalen Milroe seems like it was a turnover machine last weekend, and I think that's maybe why you might see Ty Simpson if Bryce Young can't go. But to me, I view the turnovers coming into the game as pretty even. Whereas most games, I feel like you are in this game, where Tennessee's going to win the turnover battle because Hendon Hooker's not going to put the ball in harm's way. To me, it feels kind of even how I view the turnover battle coming into the game.
Ethan,
if Bryce Young plays again, it's
yeah.
Writing and talking about this game all week is so difficult because is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner plays or not? It's a pretty darn big difference in how the game will play out.
I've found the same problem writing. I mean, you're just you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, really. I mean, because you can make as many predictions as you want, and then people are like, "Oh, you're wrong," because it's like, yeah, I was writing because I was assuming Jalen Milroe was playing, and he turned the ball over 4 times last week against Texas A&M. So, like, Ryan's on the head there. I mean, there's no way of knowing. If Bryce Young plays, is a completely different game than if Jalen Milroe plays. I hadn't even thought about Ty Simpson playing, to be honest. When you guys brought that up, it's like, yeah, Saban's probably not going to let Milroe walk out there and fumble the ball 3 times in the first quarter and then have him keep going.
They have. This is part of the good part of having this much talent in your quarterback room. Like he's gonna throw out whoever he needs to throw out there if Milroe is struggling again. And there's a lot to be desired through the air with Milroe at the very least. You know what's weird though? Do you know who his 247 comp is?
Joe Milton?
No, hold on. Joe Milton, I got the camp comp. We know.
Yeah, that's a good point. No one's comp was Joe Milton. Joe Milton hasn't been good enough to be a comp. Yeah. But that's when I watched that game last week, I was like, this guy's a little bit better runner than Joe Milton.
Oh, well, it's not Joe Milton. It's actually, it might hurt y'all's feelings now that I'm hearing your response to this. Josh Dobbs.
See that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh Dobbs until his senior year wasn't particularly prolific throwing the ball, so I could see that being a fair comparison.
But we'll see if he gets that much time as Alabama's starting quarterback. Yeah. When it comes to Crawford, though, who started at left tackle, I don't know if Mincy's gonna start. Is that up in the air, Ryan?
It's up in the air. It was a classic of Josh Heupel not saying anything. I asked him about it on Monday. I said, why was he unavailable? And you expect him back this week? And he said he was just unavailable. And he said he does expect him back, or they have some optimism. So I don't know, what's.
So is it a possibility it wasn't injury related?
I do think it's a possibility that it wasn't injury related. Again, that's I don't have that 100% or anything like that confirmed, but I do think that was a possibility, and because of that lingering and the fact that it just hasn't really been discussed or seemed to be a problem entering the LSU game, I feel like he's probably going to play, but that's obviously not guaranteed.
Well, did you see enough from Crawford to feel good about him at left tackle on Saturday?
I saw enough to feel better, than what I thought. If you would have told me Jeremiah Crawford was going to play against Alabama and face off against Will Anderson, I would not have felt very good 2 weeks ago. I feel better about it now. I still think Gerald Mincey's your better pass protector. I still think, I've heard some people say maybe Jeremiah Crawford played himself into getting the start or playing nonetheless if Mincey goes. I'm not sure I feel that way, but I do feel better, than Crawford certainly looked better on Saturday against LSU than he did in the 3 or 4 games that he had to play in last year.
Ethan, if Cedric is a go, do you think they just stick to we're only playing our 3 the whole game? Like there's no rotation, do you think, because Alabama it's just Tillman, Hyatt, and Brew, or do you think they still, because of what they've seen from Ramel and company, that they might still play some other guys in the Alabama game? What are you expecting the wide receiver rotation?
That's a hard question. For what it's worth, I don't think Tillman is playing. So
you don't think Tillman's going to play?
I don't think so. Just me personally. I think they're being very, very, very careful with him. And Alabama is even though Alabama doesn't have, beat you up corners, I'm not sure they're going to wheel him back in too soon, especially considering the core has played fine. Keaton, Jalen Hyatt especially, and Brew McCoy, they've played fine. To answer your question, I would say, just because of how impressive Ramel Keaton is, I mean, you got to give him some targets here and there. I mean, because he really has. He's stepped up and
he's earned the opportunity to play a little bit. I think you have to keep him in the rotation.
He's absolutely stepped up in a big way. And Jalen Hyatt, and I actually wrote a piece about this about 2 weeks ago, that Tennessee's receivers have gone above and beyond with Tillman being out, because you think in that Akron game when he hurts his leg like that, you're like, oh, okay, so Jalen Hyatt's going to be good. McCoy will probably be good. At that point, we hadn't seen much of him, so we just don't really know. All 3 of them have looked excellent. just excellent, especially Jalen Hyatt. The way he's been playing lately, really stepping up. That's I guess the word of the day is go get it. And that's what the wide receivers are doing. So I would think that Keaton has played his way into a few targets at the very least, but I think it's a moot point anyway because I don't think Tillman's going to play.
Well, Brew is like the quiet, like 200-yard guy. Like this guy, I was looking at his, it doesn't feel like it when you watch him. Like his end of game stat line does not feel like what you're watching in the middle of the game. Like Hyatt's always makes sense. Cedric Tillman, you're like, oh, I felt like he had 37 targets, not 17 targets. But like Brew, you have no idea. Like you could go at the end and like I'm taking my notes and I'm just like, oh, there's that. Okay. He suddenly, like, he sneakily has 13 catches for 185 yards. That's wild.
I thought that exact same thing at the end of the LSU game yesterday.
Right? You look at the numbers, you're like, he flirted with 200 yards. That's insane.
I can't remember how many receptions he had, but I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, it feels like he had about 3 catches for maybe 50 yards.
Yes.
but
it's really weird. But he's been electric and been great. I don't know. Walker Merrill's really just, there was some that off-season or preseason buzz of like, oh, is he gonna push? And he's not been a factor.
I think part of the reason for McCoy might be because he's not the flashy play guy. He's the like the slant, the like, kind of out towards the cleats. He's not a vertical guy, at least not what Tennessee has used him recently. So he's just really good yards after catch. I mean, I think it was.
He's hard to bring down. He's huge. That's why they love him in those screen passes.
I was just about to say that, Ryan. I was just about to say my dad was like, I get that he's wearing number 15, but he reminds me a lot of Jawan Jennings. Like I have to double take out there. I'm like, wait a second. Like, is he back? Is he back from the Niners? But he really is. He's very similar to that guy, but they just don't use him as a deep threat because they don't need to. I mean, Ramon Keaton and Hyatt have done that job.
Yeah. Ryan, when you look at do you think Tillman plays? Ethan doesn't seem to think he plays. Do you think he does? I think he plays. I think the reason they held him out of the LSU, you don't get that weird ankle surgery. What do they call it? The tightrope. What was it?
There's tightrope surgery. Yeah.
Unless you plan to rush this player back. Like that's part of the reason you do that, right? Like is to bring him back for something like this.
I mean, that is part of the reason you do that. I mean, Josh Heupel said as much this week. That's one of the reasons he had the surgery was trying to be back for this game. To me, it does seem like it's trending in the wrong direction of him not playing. And Heupel said on the SEC teleconference earlier this week that he wants him to be 100% before he plays. Does that hold true? I mean, I don't think he's going to be 100% on Saturday. So how much legitimacy is there to that? So, and I do think this is one of the first games that it could really hurt Tennessee because I think Tennessee needs those guys that can make plays one-on-one, physical catches, contested catches in this game. To try to open some things up for the run game and make Alabama respect Tennessee down the perimeter on both sides. So I think it'll be a bigger loss if he doesn't play than it really has been to this point. But, at the same time, obviously Jalen Hyatt, as y'all said, has stepped up. And I think Brew McCoy has been everything Tennessee could have asked for him. And especially with Tillman out, he just brings that physicality and ability to be effective in intermediate passing that Tillman really where he strives. Obviously, Tillman has a lot of long catches and makes a lot of really long plays, but darting in intermediate, which really, isn't Tennessee's offense is a lot of quick stuff and a lot of throwing the ball down the field. When they throw it in the intermediate, Cedric Tillman has just been really dominant. And these are the type of games against the best competition where really he's been at his best the last 2 years.
The weirdest part is he said, quote, if he plays, I want to make sure he's 100%. Well, then he's not playing. Like, Cedric Tillman's not going to be 100% in this game. Like, so then he's out. Just say he's out. Like, if that's what your standard is, if he's 100%, then he's not playing the rest of the year. Because it sounds like that's not a possibility with what he's dealing with.
These could very well just be mind games as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to, I guess, think of that possibility. But I'll stick to it. I don't think he plays, but he very well could just be like, he's not going to play. And then they roll him out during warmups and then he goes off for 150 yards. Just not really. It's the same thing with Saban and Bryce Young. He's not going to say a single thing until the first possession.
Something to monitor. Stan Ramil, very much aware of Michigan State being bad at football this year. And we talked about it where like Lucas Simmons, we didn't 100% close the door on. We'll see how Florida State's season ends because Tennessee still has that open offensive tackle spot. We don't really know what Bryson Lang is. It seems like most people think he's a guard. So that spot would still be pretty much open across. Why am I blanking on the kid from Georgia? Why am I blanking Sham, yeah. Sham, I forgot his name for a second. But it is curious, like, when you look at the Carnell Tate aspect of all of this too, who they're getting back involved there. So they clearly haven't stopped with some of the prospects that they were close to. Haven't heard anything on Francis with Miami struggles, but who knows? Maybe that's someone they get in conversations with again. Ryan, do you think it's real that Carnell Tate could flip back to Tennessee this fall? And do you think he's there on Saturday? Do you think they are able to get him into Neyland?
Yeah, I mean, I have zero insight on whether he's going to be there. It sounds like that's the plan, so I'll go with I think he's going to be there. I don't think they flip him in the fall. I do think they have a chance to flip him if they get him on campus because it's the only place he's visited since he committed, or besides Ohio State, since he committed to Ohio State back in the summer. And it's always been a Tennessee-Ohio State battle for a really long time. And obviously he has a good relationship with Nico, and unlike Ramil and some of those teams that they're struggling, that's not the case with Ohio State. So I think that kind of shows how legitimate the interest is that Tennessee's done enough for him to still be involved in his recruitment. So I don't think that one, if they get him on campus, I think that gives Tennessee a puncher's chance. And I guess I wouldn't say that they're going to get him or anything if that's the case, but I don't think it's just a visit for the sake of a visit like you often see sometime with committed guys. I think that shows and expresses some real interest that he still has in Tennessee. And Tennessee, it's probably been more of what they've been able to do on the field that's impressed them and shown that, yeah, you can come here and play for SEC championships and play in really big football games.
Especially all the DBs who are coming, like, just, hey, look, you can play right away next year. Here you go. Like, this is your opportunity, Sylvester. Like, you're really going to be
over there. Jermaine over there, you could be guarding him.
Yeah, like, that's you right now. That's a good thing. Like, you're winning games and you're like, hey, we're weak here. You're all starting next year, like a whole new group, only freshmen in the Tennessee lineup next year. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how the recruiting unfolds. I wonder with Devin Hobbs, he's probably the one I have my eyes on the most, like just stacking the defensive line and that 5-star kid. If you're able to get him, this is just such a big game because it's down to basically Alabama and Tennessee. So how this looks for him and all that good stuff is going to be huge. Boo Carter, which is a great name. Excited to see him more and more and see if he ends up choosing the balls for the Chattanooga kid. But we'll see how this weekend goes. Bunch of talent in the building. It's just fun. It adds to the excitement just to have this many guys. The last thing I'll say on this game before our predictions, Aaron Beasley needs to start. I don't know what we're still doing with the Juwan Mitchell experiment, but he's been bad to this point. The numbers bear that out. He's been one of Tennessee's most poorly graded players on defense the last couple weeks on PFF. And if you watch the games, you're like, yeah, Juwan's just slow. And it's just, Beasley's a tackling machine. And I just feel better about Aaron Beasley in this game. I hope the Juwan Mitchell experiment, I understand they're rotating a little bit, but Aaron Beasley should not have lost his job to Juwan Mitchell. And we need to recognize that and make that adjustment. Do you agree?
It's hard when I was going to say, or I'll keep mine brief. It's really hard when you're not playing the first couple games of the season. And may I add, a pretty decent amount of the games last season as well. I mean,
yeah,
they're asking him to do a lot of things that Aaron Beasley was already doing. I think I wouldn't say he's been terrible based on that. He hasn't been great by any means, but I mean, given the fact he hasn't played any football games at the University of Tennessee, it's pretty difficult to ask him to do that. That's my one question mark. Is like Beasley has played perfectly fine. Ryan, take it.
Beasley's maybe the best linebacker. I think he's been better than Banks this year.
Yeah, I
think he is. And it doesn't bother me that Juwan Mitchell starts because Aaron Beasley is in the game on the first drive every single game. But you're right. I mean, Aaron Beasley needs to be playing the majority of the snaps, and it needs to be a clear, Jeremy Banks, Aaron Beasley playing the most snaps, Juwan Mitchell being third, and then, probably a couple snaps for Solon Page the third too. So I'm with you there. One other note I was going to have when you mentioned Boo Carter, I don't know if there's been some coordination, but Tennessee needs to give a real shout out to TSSAA for Boo Carter plays in Knoxville twice Friday night, this Friday night for the Alabama game, and again in 2 weeks before the Kentucky game. I don't know if Carter will be at the Kentucky game as well, but TSSAA has given him some real good opportunities just to come into Knoxville to play a high school game on Friday night, then stick around the next day to watch the ball. So nice break for Tennessee the way that's worked out twice now.
There you go. And also just the Jordan Matthews blowout in front of it. Yeah. Like, that was really nice. I think his family's pretty pretty content. Like if folks were worried about him flipping LSU and staying home at the end of the year, that doesn't seem like that's going to be the case.
And also, one more on the recruiting front. Tamarian Parker, I just saw, I think like an hour ago, he put out his final 4 or 5. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's really interesting because I believe he just said that he was coming to the Tennessee game.
He is.
Yeah, so, he's on.
I find that I'm not saying that's going anywhere, but I do think it's pretty interesting that he happens to set his commitment date. I believe it's October 21st, or right before the Alabama game. But I have no insider information on that whatsoever. I don't know. I think it's a little interesting, something to monitor for sure going forward.
All things coming up. Tennessee, it's time for our actual picks for how this game goes. Ryan, you're in the Crimson Red. It's time for you to turn your back on the University of Tennessee that you are dying to do. Come on, Ryan. We know why you actually wore the Crimson Red.
Get the elephant.
Feed me your booze.
All right, do it.
I'm picking Alabama.
I knew you were. I knew you were going to do it.
That's my prediction. It's
what was the score?
34-27, and this is a going off Bryce Young playing. For what it's worth, if Bryce Young doesn't play, I do think Tennessee wins. But I think he will play, and I'll give Alabama a nod. But I do think this is a game that's going to go deep into the fourth quarter, and certainly that has not been the case too often. So should be a lot of fun. Should be really exciting.
Ethan, what about you?
I do weekly projections on SDS for Tennessee, and then one other SEC/Big Ten game per year. Per week anyway. And this is the first week I picked Tennessee to lose. I think it's going to be really close. I'm very similar to Ryan. I think I'm just not sure if Bryce Young plays. I'm just not sure they're going to be able to do anything on defense to stop him. I think he's kind of going to torch the secondary a little bit. I do think it's going to be very close. I think almost exactly what Ryan said. I think it's going to go into the fourth quarter. I think it's just going to be too much. I'm going to say Alabama 35-31.
Couldn't be me. No, I'm not having this. No, the loss for Tennessee is not coming until Athens. That's that first loss. That's where it's coming. It's not coming here. Everyone is so afraid to just pick against the beat up Alabama Crimson Tide coming to Knoxville.
This is not true. So many people have picked Tennessee this week. Yeah. The media has given Nick Saban and the Alabama football team way too much.
That's enough from Ryan. No, here is what's actually happening. Ryan with his nonsense. It's great to have the mute button here because he was just going into some nonsense about like everyone's picking Tennessee. Everyone's picking.
He's 100% correct.
All right, there goes Ethan. Bam. Both gone. Out. Mute. Done. No. So what is happening all week long is everyone's like, oh, Alabama. They just Alabama this, Alabama that. They're going to roll. Because have you heard about the Roll Tide roll? They're going to roll into Knoxville and roll through the Vols. That the Vols aren't ready for big time. That Alabama is going to win this football game and win it with ease. Like that's all we're hearing from national pundits like Joel Klatt, Josh Pate, who you name it. They're all in on the Alabama Crimson Tide going into this game. Not me. I'm going to go bold. I'm going to say not only does Tennessee win this game and beat up Bryce Young team, they win big. I think 41-24 Tennessee wins this football game. I think Tennessee wins. They keep up the 40-point streak. I think they torch this Alabama defense. They get big plays. Bama's going to send the house. They're going to send their guys, and they're going to get beat over the top. And we saw it with Javonte Payton last year. We saw it with Cedric Tillman. No Cedric Tillman. It's a better team. They're going to get after Bryce. They're going to hit Bryce. Byron Young's going to get him. We're going to see Jalen Milroe. We're going to see Ty Simpson. We're going to see the whole collection that Saban throws out at Josh Heupel. And it won't be enough because the Vols win big and the Vols move on. Bold prediction. Not only do I have Tennessee winning, I have Tennessee winning big. And it's unfortunate that the national media folks have all written Tennessee off ahead of this game in Knoxville. But not me. Couldn't be me.
You're doing Josh Heupel's work for him, telling the team how no one believes in him.
No one does believe in him.
No one believes in Tennessee, the number 6 team in the country.
No one believes in them. It's bulletin board. Rat poison.
Yeah.
Ryan Schumpert, what can the good folks check out from you over at Rocky Top Insider this week?
Yeah, plenty of stuff previewing the game. Talked to not Wilson Alexander. He was the LSU guy. Talked to Nick Kelly of the Tuscaloosa News earlier this week. He gave us a good breakdown, and then have our predictions today, which you just heard mine. But you can see Rick Butler's 3 keys to the game, which we hit on some of that stuff today as well. So plenty of stuff getting you ready for Alabama, and then next week, a little bit less football action with UT Martin. We'll still have tons of stuff on that, but also SEC basketball media days. I'll be down there in Birmingham. So plenty of stuff as we kind of start to get into the overlap of basketball and football.
There you go. Ethan, what about you over at Saturday Down South?
Cannot wait for basketball season. I'll say that much. But we'll have full coverage as always, obviously, of all 14 SEC schools. Some Big Ten as well on the Big Ten side of things, Saturday tradition. I work at 3:30. right as the game starts, so I'll be fully covering Tennessee, Alabama. They'll probably chuck me on that, and obviously throughout the night and until the early hours in the morning covering SEC football. So go check it out there, Saturday Down South, and yeah.
There you go. Ryan, Ethan, thank you as always for the time, and I will talk to y'all both next week.
Sounds great.
Falls by 90.